Well, hello everyone. My name is Beits. I'm with Gallop Technology Group, and I am honored to have Stuart with us today, talking to all of us in the next half hour or so. Promise you, like always, we're going to be done on time. Talk to us about the generic topic of time management, and it's not really managing the time, it's kind of managing yourself. But I'm super excited because when I prepared this webinar with Stuart and asked him, hey, what can we do to bring value to our customers, to our friends who join these webinars and watch these recordings? What do you think we should talk about? And we brainstormed a little bit and found that most of our clients and most of his clients struggle with understanding that if you don't manage your day correctly, and if you start stressing about the wrong things, and if you don't understand how to prioritize, you're going to get into a very big sinkhole, and it's not the right way to run a business or to manage people, etc. So I would love to hand it over to you, Stuart, and ask if you can please, first of all, share a little bit about yourself, and let's dive in right after that to the topic that everybody is joining us today and watching this recording later to listen to you talk about.
Sure. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. You're a great friend, a great colleague, so this is an honor. Stuart Wachs here, located in Scottsdale, Arizona, originally a Midwest guy, moved recently, 14 years ago from Minnesota. I run the Impact Group, and we focus on company and organizational growth. Working with head of company, CEO, founder, executive director, whatever it might be, and their leadership teams to move them through different stages of growth, lead them to compounding growth, working on strategy, execution, cash, and a lot of work on the people side. Real meaningful work, real rewarding work, and look forward to talking about some of those elements today as it relates to time and all the different aspects and misperceptions around time and leadership and growth and how they all intertwine.
So, talking about time, when you think of the subject of time and time management, what comes to mind in your head and in your customers and when you work with people about some of the misconceptions or the highlights that you want them to keep in mind?
Yeah, great question, Bates. And it's so interesting. And I've definitely in my career, before becoming a coach as a CEO and a COO, suffer from this myself. When a lot of times people think about their time, their team's time, it's how do we find more time? How do we organize our time to get all these things done? And it's usually about more time, more time. I wish there were 40 hours in a day instead of 24. And the misconception is not that there's not enough time. There's plenty of time, regardless of what stage you're at, what your role is. It really is really understanding how you choose to do what in that time. How you mentioned priorities. Is what you're doing tied to your individual and company priorities? Are you out there, which so many of us do, chasing the shiny objects, the squirrel chasing the nuts, whatever analogy you want to use? Or are you really in your sweet spot, spending time that's going to move the needle? And it's more about what and who than how much.
So you're talking about basically being productive, being efficient, right? I mean, if everybody has the same amount of hours in a day and you're not efficient, or is it being effective? I mean, how would you describe the difference between being effective and being efficient?
Yeah, so efficiency is, and it is important. It's super important to have efficiency in what you're doing and how you're doing it. But everybody talks about efficiency in their systems, in their process, in their day, whether it's in the sports world, whether it's in the professional world, or even your personal life. Am I being efficient? Which efficiency is about doing things right. That I'm writing this proposal, I'm in this sales process, I'm creating this strategic plan, I'm redoing our SOPs. Am I doing it right? And the more right I can be, the more efficient I'm being. Efficiency is important, but really one of the magic pillars of time is, are you being effective? And effectiveness is, are you doing the right things? And I'm sure with the rest of our conversation, a lot of what will lie and tie into this. The first thing is, what are those things I, the individual CEO, COO, head of sales, whatever my role is, what are the right things that I should be doing? And then second to that, am I being efficient to them? But so many of us, as disciplined and experienced and the expertise we have, don't really have a meaningful path to find the effectiveness before they dive into the efficiency. And we end up spending so much of our time on things that, whatever the needle is that we're responsible for, that aren't moving that needle. And we might be super efficient about it, but we're still scrambling for time and not making the sales, having the growth, whatever, again, our area of operation is.
Yeah, I heard something from somebody years ago that it's amazing to know how to do what you need to do, but I learned something from one of my friends and networking dear friend and personal dear friend, one of our attendees today, Ina from Core Accounting. If, by the way, if you guys need any accounting and bookkeeping services for, they work only with law firms, but this is exactly the point. Um, Knowing what you should not spend time on is one thing that I think Ina and her team perfected. You know, knowing where to stop and where to delegate and where to not maybe offer a specific service anymore, because you need to do your homework. You need to make sure that you're uh, not just efficient and productive, but also profitable if it's related to your business. Um, I, you know, you work a lot with leadership teams, I assume, and one of the things that we spoke about is setting goals and strategies and priorities when it comes to uh, the management team and time management in general for small, mid-sized companies. I know that most of your clients are more in the mid-sized companies and you know people that companies that have you know a couple dozen employees or more at least. But I know you have a lot of experience with small businesses as well, and you consulted and helped many small businesses. So can you share a little bit about how do the goals and the strategies, etc., come into the time management?
Yeah, great point. And I love what you just said about and complimenting Ina at Core, that having that discipline, because right away you're filtering a lot of stuff. So one of the first steps to even know how I'm going to be effective and what are those things I'm going to do, you can't just create a task list and say these are the most impactful, so I'm going to choose those. A lot of the work I do, and this does absolutely tie into quote unquote time management and how we spend more time, is you need to know ultimately where you're going. So having that clear picture of your long-term goal, your big, hairy, audacious goal, your flag on top of the mountain, whatever analogy is, really knowing where, if you're the company owner or part of the leadership team or wherever you are, you should know this for your company. Your company should have it. Where are we going to be in 10, 15, 20 years, whatever long term is for that company? Because that future, you don't work towards it, that should pull you. And once you have that, really weeding down the strategy of really knowing where we're going to be in 3 years. And then for this year, for let's say you're an annual calendar year for 2025, here's our goals. Here's our number one priority, maybe a couple sub priorities. You now have clarity, and all that strategy can then lead to execution that's highly effective and efficient, because you are not just choosing out of your tasks, it's all tied into where that company, whether it's a $1 million handful of employee or it's a 50 million with 350 employees, doesn't matter. Having a line strategy, long, mid, and short term, understanding the capabilities you have to have, understanding really clearly. I do what I do work. That company for that year has literally one top priority and nothing trumps it. So everything gets focused. And now you can get into the concept of focusing on that, narrowing the time. There's a great book out there called 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. One's a real leading business thought leader. The other is becoming that, but a brilliant psychologist. And they kind of intertwine mindset and business systems. And one of the things that I got to spend about a day with him, and it was really powerful, was he took us through an exercise. So you got that big, hairy, audacious goal. What if you only had 3 years to do it? Of course, your initial reaction is, shit, I didn't even think I could do it in 30 years. How am I going to do it in 3 years? But you keep pushing, and eventually somebody on that leadership team, someone in the group's going to say, well, only if. And that's like one of those big aha moments, because an only if filters everything out. We could only do that only if we streamlined our divisions, only if we did this. So ultimately what I'm getting at is, if you have that focus, your floor raises, your ceiling raises, and all of a sudden there's many less things that you can focus on that are actually going to get you there. So now you're getting that streamlined focus. And when you look at where you're spending your time, you're going to be spending your time somewhere in that box that now there's only 15 things rather than 150 things to move it. So strategy and knowing where you're going and the purpose of why you're doing it is really huge to setting those priorities. And those priorities will guide where the company spends its time. And then whatever your function is, you're going to have your own priorities that feed into it, where you spend your time. And you mentioned this at the very beginning, Beits, the hardest thing, whatever your position are, whether you're new or you've been doing what you've doing for 30 years and you're driven and you're excellent, is not what to say yes to. That's way too easy. It's what we say no to. And one of the best exercises in time management, you go through when you have all that alignment and you free yourself and say, and you do that stop doing list, which either means someone else is going to do it, or boy, if no one did this for 6 months, it's not going to affect moving that needle. You would be shocked at the tens, if not hundreds of things fall off your list, and you can focus your time better and actually get a lot more done, spending way less time doing it.
So if we look at a normal small mid-sized business where most of those businesses like mine don't have the luxury of delegating everything, and don't have the luxury of
Right.
not doing many things that we hate doing or we should not be doing right now. There has to be some type of trick or magic down somebody's sleeve that will help us get a little bit more efficient, at least. Can you give an example of how you helped somebody in the small, mid-sized business environment?
Absolutely. And I've worked with companies that only have 2 people on their leadership team and 4 or 5 other employees. What we do is number one, we do that long-term, mid-term, short-term, so you really know what's important. So now you've got a singular priority for the year, you have goals for that year, and then you chop that into quarters. So we're now in Q2. The company has 2 Q goals. Beits has 2 Q goals. Stuart has 2 Q2 goals. And let's say you and I are the only ones on the leadership team. Again, we would go through that process of, number one, hopefully we know what Beits' sweet spot is. And a sweet spot, I'm sure you've seen that Venn diagram where you've got you're good at, you love doing, and highly profitable. And that little section where all 3 of those is where Beits should be spending his time and Stuart should be spending his time. That's where our energy is high. That's where we're going to be productive. And what happens, yes, when you're a smaller company and startup, or even it's not startup, but it's a smaller company, there are going to be things that we have to do that aren't ideal. But when you weigh that against those goals and those priorities, I'll use me. I'm a small company. My firm isn't, multi-millions of dollars with, 50 employees or anything. I have a virtual assistant, and she does so much for me that I'm capable of, but that's not highest. It's not beneath me, but it's not highest and best use of my time. I have an accountant. I have a tax person. I have a marketing person. Those are investments I made, and I'm not a big company, because those are tactics that have to happen. But to me, I know if I make that investment and I can live in my sweet spot or closer and closer to it, that needle's going to move, I'm going to grow. And as I grow, I can fill those resources better. So it's really looking at invest your time as an investment. And even when you have limited resources, how can you best position those? And then again, what are those things that you can stop doing? I'll use me for an example. Because of what I do, LinkedIn's at least I believe it's a powerful tool. I caught myself, I actually tracked it for a few days, spending hours on LinkedIn. I couldn't draw even a dotted line to really impact. So I created a discipline of the things I must do on LinkedIn and then the time I'm going to live with myself on LinkedIn. So that time can be better spent performing for my clients, doing the type of business development that I need to do. So it's really finding those different paths that are in your sweet spot and are going to move the needle. And don't be scared for things not to happen that can ultimately maybe never happen, or if they happen in Q3 or Q4, you really haven't slipped and you've probably grown because you're not spending time on it.
I want to chime in and give an example that actually helped me and my company a lot. Uh, we struggled with rotation of employees, and I know many businesses find it very hard to retain good talent. We've done two things over the years that I'm really thankful that we've done. One of them is engage with an outsourced HR and benefits company. We work with Insperity. I don't know if any of you watching this, you know Insperity. They're amazing company to work with, and they take care of all of our payroll and HR. And we were able to actually bring benefits to our employees, the same pretty much benefits that Google offers to their employees. So now I can compete and retain that talent that I want to retain. So that's one thing to help with the rotation of employees. But the other thing that we suffered from is when we onboarded employees, we wasted so much time. And back on the time topic right now, teaching your way and teaching who you are and your values and your core values, your vision, your mission, all of that stuff needs to be embedded in any employee's brain from day one. They need to understand what your values are, how your clients expect to be communicated with, etc. And I found myself over the years repeating the same thing again and again, wasting hours training people on the technical training, on the philosophy of the company training, all of those things. And one trick that I don't know why it took me a few years to implement was just create some training videos. And it was nothing special. I didn't have to go to a studio for that. You record yourself from a webcam like I do right now and record some of the training that I've done with an existing or even with a brand new employee. Let them ask questions during the training, because that's a new employee that's simulating that type of um, uh, onboarding that we're going to do maybe in a month from now to another new employee. So having that real conversation, so when a new person comes in and watches the same video, he's like, okay, I should have asked that question. I'm glad that I'm watching a real training. So it's not just about talking to yourself or recording your screen only and making technical videos boring. I really love the idea of saving tons of time by automating, and this is obviously where technology can come into
Yeah.
to play very easily. Um, I I don't know why a lot of people yet not use training videos and technology and having the automation of onboarding an employee or offboarding an employee or onboarding a customer. A lot of the steps that it takes to onboard a new customer, I don't care if you're a bookkeeper or if you're a law firm or if you're a construction company, it's almost always going to be the same process for your company again and again and again. And my philosophy is if you have to enter the same information more than once somewhere, your system is broken. There has to be that efficiency to save the time. And this is why I love bringing people like you to the table when it comes to conversations with customers that are thinking of hiring another assistant, another paralegal, another office manager, another in-house IT person to help with all that. There doesn't have to be another 70, 80,000, $100,000 expense if you spend a small fraction of it to just invent your process and save that time. I keep hearing, I keep hearing the structure structuring your day, your week, your month, when it comes to um, preparing for your week. And I look at my schedule every night before I go to sleep, what's happening tomorrow and the day after. That's how I prepare. But there has to be a structure, because if we have a to-do list and we just don't have time to address those items, that list, it's pointless. My to-do list kept growing over the years, and it never shrinks in the same rate that it grows. So you mentioned to me you work with companies that invested in creating a structure for the day, the month, the year. Walk us through, give us some advice on something we can all take home with us at the end of this webinar and say, you know what,
Yeah,
let me do
yeah,
XYZ to structure my day, my week,
yeah,
etc. How does that work with your clients?
yeah. Absolutely. First, I want to piggyback on something you said, and this is that bridging of effectiveness and efficiency. Once you know where you have to have some focus for yourself and your company. I'm not just saying this because you're a technology company. Technology, be that software, systems, video, quality use of AI and machine learning to do things, not to replace people, but for that efficiency, are powerful. And very small companies can afford, and there are ways you can do it. So that just a shout out to technology being one. It doesn't help you set the priorities, but once you know what you have to do and you look at the things that aren't in your sweet spot or that you need to stop doing, it might be others, it might be nothing, but absolutely your example, the training videos is a great one. Then you find out that balance between where you still need the in-person contact and the video, but there's technology absolutely can be a big part of letting you spend your time really make sense. So to your question about how you spend your day, your week, your month, this couple thoughts about that. There's two different kinds of time. There's quantitative time and qualitative time. Most of us think the harder we work, the more time we put in. We'll show our calendar, it's full of appointments, and we put in 60 hours this week, and boy, we're really driving it. I will challenge you that most likely you are not. You're spending all of your time in quantitative time, which is task oriented. If you're at any mid management and up level, you need to have time carved out for qualitative time. That's the
Can you
thing
explain,
that
please?
yeah, sure. That's what technology, maybe a little bit of AI, but really can't. This is where you're the whole saying of working on your business rather than in it. This is where you're looking at the strategy, you're evaluating the last quarter, looking to the next quarter. This is where you're future looking. If you really want to have growth, if you want to have growth in your life, in your business, you've got to be focusing out the windshield, not in the rear view mirror, and not right at the steering wheel, what you're doing today. So having a balance to make sure, and depending what your role and what level is, I don't know, but if you're at a senior level, the vast majority of your time should be qualitative, not quantitative. If you're at a level where you have a lot more task oriented stuff, you still need to make sure you're having that qualitative time. So you're going to have like focus days, which are on performance, where your focus days are blocks where you're focused on the task at hand that need to get done, that feed into the priority, that are going to move the needle, but it's task project oriented. You're going to have buffer days, which are the days where you're getting a little more into qualitative, where you're thinking it through, you're planning for that, you're reviewing it, you're doing your prep work. And then what most people really, really are terrible at are restorative days or free days.
What do you mean?
What I mean by that is it's you need time to just rejuvenate your mind, your soul, your health, your body. Yes, especially when you're younger, you can grind and you can put 70 hours a week. You're not being productive. If you don't give your time to turn off the world, this might be reading, it might be meditation, it might be working out, might be getting a massage, might be playing golf, might be watching old movies, might be hanging out with your family, might be reading a business or thought leader book on the ocean where you're really going to absorb what you're learning, something that's for your own growth. Your productivity will go up exponentially, and that time is as valuable as that quantitative project time. I literally calendar all that out for myself. If you looked at my calendar, you would probably laugh because I have meetings with myself. And I have a definition of the purpose of that meeting. Is it focus? Is it buffer? Is it restorative? And maybe even what I'm doing. And 85% disciplined that's as holy as if I have a meeting with a client or a prospect or a partner, because you need to really do that. Another thing that's really, really powerful when it comes to our time management, and people don't realize the negative impact, that's interruptions. That I don't remember the exact math. I didn't pull it up before that. But if whether someone walking in your office, sending you a text and you look down and answer it, a phone call, something that's interrupting you from whatever that time is focused on, and let's say that took 2 minutes, that interruption actually cost you like 20 minutes. The time interruption, the time for you to really get back in the cycle of whatever you were doing. So find ways. When I'm working, I'll shut my Outlook. I'll turn the alerts that tell me I have an email off. I don't get alerts on my phone for emails. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb so that I can have that focus. So look at where you work, how you're working, how you communicate and set that up with, if you're working in an environment where there's a lot of other people, so you can also really minimize those interruptions and be focused on whatever that task is at hand. The last thing I'd say, we all know meetings can be powerful or interruptive or sometimes feel like a waste of time. Have a purpose. I'm a big believer, if you're at the leadership level or even mid-tier and you've got key reports, of daily huddles. And you could have 5 direct reports and get the whole daily huddle done in 15 minutes, because everybody has those clear goals. The number one, and it's a real quick, what am I working on today? What's the number one thing I'm going to accomplish? Here's my red, yellow, green, if you will. And if I'm stuck, what I'm stuck on. Boom, boom, to the point. It doesn't mean you never go to lunch and catch up on personal things, but if you're having meetings, especially things that move things along, short, sweet, regular, consistent agenda, everybody can see it before and after, and just crank those out. You'll appreciate it. Your direct reports or team will appreciate it, and you're maintaining that discipline around focus on the important things and kind of losing that cloudiness in there.
Yeah, the topic of interruption is crazy. I mean, we have so many dings and dongs all over, from the computer, from the tablet, from the phone, from 15 different apps on the phone, and Outlook and Messenger and Teams. One thing that people don't utilize at all, from what I've seen, is the focus time on, if you use Microsoft Windows operating system. If you click on the start button and type in the word focus, you can set up your computer to go into focus mode for 15, 20, 30, 45, whatever minutes. That's one thing that will really help you with eliminating a lot of those ding-dongs. And on the cell phone, obviously, there's the focus mode, and you can just put it in the drawer for a half hour. We have a minute left. I would love to ask, what is the biggest takeaway that you think we can leave people with in terms of time management? The top 1, 2, or 5 points that you want us to try to take care of and change in ourselves or implement in our day, that you think will be the most beneficial for us?
Sure, I'll try to do this super fast. Make sure for yourself, if you run the company for your company, or if you're on the team, work with the rest of your team, that you have a clear understanding of where you're going to be down the road. And then you go through that cycle of understanding what's important. Make sure, whether you're the one setting them or receiving them, you have really clear priority you're working to, really clear objectives for the quarter and the year. So you can make sure when you do that 80-20 roll and filter out, you're working on things that are important. Think about your sweet spot, that Venn diagram, what you're good at, what you love doing, because you can be good at stuff and hate doing it, and what's highly profitable for the company, the organization, because we're doing this in a work environment. Understand where that is. And if you're not in that sweet spot, find a way to get into it. Find a way for everybody in their team to get into, because your energy is going to be exponentially higher. You're going to have the discipline, and you're going to be much more effective and efficient. And think about doing that stop doing exercise. I'm telling you, it is one of the most powerful things you can do if you're brutally honest with yourself. you will have at least a couple page, if not a whole legal pad full or tablet page full, whatever your modality is. And if you're a reader, I read probably a book every 4 to 6 weeks just because of what I do. Business book, thought leader book. Read 10x is easier than 2x. It's a big book, but it'll drive home a lot of what Beits talked about, I talked about, and it will be potentially life-changing for you as a human and for how you spend your time and you drive your company or your division or your role within that company.
Stuart, can't thank you enough. This has been amazing. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure everybody else does as well. If you guys want to reach out to Stuart, obviously we're going to edit this video and put his contact information down there. So please reach out to him, and I can promise you he's going to be able to take you as a customer, but he's a nice guy, so I might as well just meet for a beer, if nothing else. Thanks again, Stuart. Looking forward to meeting you in person again very soon. And everybody that joined, appreciate your time. Hopefully you learned something. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, so much.
Bye-bye.